My favorite Wildes. You want to know my favorite conspiracy theory? That Belichick got wind of this, and that was the reason for the accidental Flores text. Make sure Brady doesn't come to the AFC East and kick his teeth in twice a year. Like, oh, no, I'm putting an end to this thing right now. However, I don't believe that, but I do finally. I am grateful that we have clarity. Because the Brady faux sham retirement never made sense, but now it does. It was to get to Miami. I thought it was to get to San Francisco. I knew it was to get somewhere. It was to get to Miami. And then when that got blown up because he didn't want to go to Miami given what was happening with the Brian Flores lawsuit, he then said, okay, I'll come back if you do the following. And I believe one of the following was not have Bruce Arians be the head coach. But one of the reasons I believe this story, even though it's kind of being loosely reported and you kind of have to piece it together, is because it makes so much more sense, Brew, than the alternative. And the alternative is that Tom Brady earnestly was retired for 5.5 weeks to, spend time with the family and then got sick of it. That never made sense, Wildes. So this makes sense that Brady was retiring purely as a move on the chessboard to get out of Tampa. And now we know it was to go to Miami, not San Francisco. So I understand it now. So yes, of course, I believe it. And it makes a hell of a lot more sense than the alternative.
Nothing about it makes sense whatsoever. The only thing that makes sense to me is that I'm out on the Bucs this year. And I'm out on Tom Brady's, the idea that he's a force multiplier and where he goes, winning follows. Just for the record, Broussard, how things have played out. The Bucs won a Super Bowl. Then last year, they largely had a disappointing finish, a season in which Antonio Brown, who was brought there by Brady, living in his house, disrobed and pouted his way out of the stadium. That was Tom Brady's guy. Then they were out of the playoffs. Then he has a sham retirement, which he only thanks the Buccaneers and doesn't thank anybody in the Patriots organization. Then he comes back, and he wanted to go to the Dolphins. Meanwhile, Gronk is still gone, and now Bruce Arians is fired. So is that the signature? And are these the signs of somebody who is all in on the Tampa Bay Bucs, 100% focused? Or is it a sign of saying, you know what? Bill Belichick did a lot of this stuff for me. Bill Belichick did all the roster manipulations, was able to be the bad guy, was able to move this person out, this person, but provided steady leadership. Now there isn't steady leadership, and Brady's rocking the boat, and people are falling overboard left and right. So when it is all said and done, I think the Dolphins story is silly. Maybe it would have come to fruition. It seemed like there needed to be a lot of dominoes to fall. But I don't think when we look at what's happening on the field that this bears well for the Bucs. That the Bucs go into this season being like, yes, we're ready. Brady is locked in. Anything but. It seems like the exact opposite.
Well, look, Nick, I agree with you that this, the retirement for Brady never made sense. All right, just the way it was handled from beginning to end, it didn't make sense. But this story about him wanting to go to the Dolphins doesn't bring any clarity to me. I've seen fewer twists and turns in a Liam Neeson movie. All right, I was reading it this was incredible.
Taken two.
All right, I don't know how in the world they could have brought all that together. I don't know. Did he know, by the way, Tyreek Hill was going to eventually end up with the Dolphins too? Because I don't know that they had enough where they, certainly in the AFC nowadays, where they would have been able to win a Super Bowl, because eventually the plan was for him to play for Miami. But Wildes, you made a great point. I don't agree with you on the Belichick stuff. Like Brady, that's what a lot of people were saying in Tampa Bay. That old Todd Bowles is more like Belichick and it'll be more of a steady ship and no nonsense and Brady wants that. Maybe. But I don't agree that he's looking for Belichick to do everything for him, somebody to do it like Belichick did. But you're right. That was my first thought as I'm reading through this and contemplating that maybe it could be true. I am thinking, wow, is he going to be all in with the Buccaneers? Like, if he's got eyes, his eyes are wandering other places, how all in will he be with the Bucs? Here's the thing. The NFC, we all know, is not what it used to be. And that is the thing. I think by the time the season gets here, Brady will have enough time and look at the landscape and say, we could win this conference. Look at what's going on in Green Bay. Look at what's going on in Arizona. You know, it's tough to get back to a Super Bowl like the Rams. San Francisco doesn't know who the quarterback's going to be. So I had those questions too, Wildes. But, Nick, I think Brady will be able to, get himself back focused, laser focused for the Bucs by the time the season comes around.
Listen, I think Brady will be fine. I don't think he'll play quite as well as he played last year, where he was a legit MVP candidate. But this is less about Brady the player and more about Brady the person. And Wildes, you were walking down the road, but you, as often happens, you glanced up at the "Be Kind" sign behind you, and you didn't fully crush him the way you wanted to. So I'll do it. Like, can we? The only other active athlete right now that is like of Brady's stature is LeBron, right? I guess Tiger and LeBron, Serena, if she's still active, but like in the argument for the greatest to ever do it, still playing at a super high level, right, Wildes? That's a fair comp for me to make. Cristiano
100%.
Ronaldo, fine, whatever. Okay? Man, can you imagine if the next 6 weeks LeBron does the nonsense Brady's done over the last 6? If he retires and then unretires, and then it was to fire a coach, not Vogel, but a coach that everyone really liked and was surprised by it, and then it turns out, well, actually it was because he was doing a Queen's Gambit to get to Cleveland, you think he'd be like, oh, some interesting chicanery going on with LeBron James. What's the outlook for the Lakers next year? He would be annihilated, absolutely excoriated. Why are people acting like Tom Brady's last 3 months have been a normal way for anyone to act, much less the guy who is unanimously considered the greatest to ever do it? He fake retired, unretired, had a coach forced out, I believe. I can't prove that part, but I think a lot of people believe it. And now we find out it's because he was trying to go to the Dolphins to run some fake game of, I'm going to be the owner. Oh, now I'm going to be the quarterback. It's insane. This is wild. If I had given you this scenario the week before the Bucs played the Rams, like, hey, buddy, a crystal ball, here's what's going to happen. In the next 3 months, Brady's going to retire, unretire. There's going to be a new head coach in Tampa, and we're going to find out he was trying to own a team to then play for it, and that's not Tampa. Would you have believed it? Or would you think I'd gotten into the Lobos a little early that morning? Like this is insane behavior for anybody, much less the GOAT.
It's bizarre.
I agree. I just want to make this perfectly clear. He didn't retire and then unretire. Like, people have done that in sports where, like, I retired and I decided to come back. I had the passion. He did not do that. He orchestrated a manipulative maneuver that played on the feelings of NFL fans across the world. And I think there's a point, like, I think it was Dan Shaughnessy took a lot of heat for saying, like, hey, that was a bad move. And I was like, no, give him his flowers, da-da-da. It wasn't. It was manipulative. And I think people's feelings are a little bit hurt by that as more of the story comes out. It just never felt like the retirement was on the up and up.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.